everyone. Today we're so happy to have David Chaum. He's known as the Godfather of cryptocurrency. To come into our DeThings media room. Thank you for coming, David.
It's so great to be here. My pleasure, Vivian.
You can say hello to our audience and
so it's super great to be here. And you may be wondering why someone who invented electronic money in the early 1980s and felt it was so important that cryptography, electronic money could be used by people with privacy, that I risked spending the rest of my life in jail at that time to launch a conference on cryptography when the government said that it was strictly forbidden. But now, why would someone like that be saying that money is a bad thing? But I'm sure of it now, and I think money is keeping the poor poor, and there's a much better way to do it now with technology, and we'll come to that. And it's a surprising thing, but no one else really thought of it because no one sees the world through the cryptographic protocol lens that I see it through, because I've been working on these cryptographic protocols for 40 years, and I know a lot of tricks, and I see how something might be possible, whereas to other people it seems impossible.
It is. I was born in 2000. So today I was so pleased to be here, to have such an opportunity to interview you,
thank you.
To share with some about the general insights toward today's cryptocurrency situation. So let's first talk about better than money.
That's what I'm really passionate about.
What's the problem with current money system? And could you provide a brief overview of its core features and what you consider to be its most innovative aspects?
Well, the most innovative aspect of better than money is simply that each person can keep all of their value invested in different assets, cryptocurrencies, or commodities like gold, or even equities in companies. Whatever mix is appropriate for that person at their age, with their travel plans and the type of business they're doing. It's not one size fits all. There's no one perfect investment portfolio, and so each person has their own asset portfolio, and so better than money simply allows asset value to be moved from your asset portfolio to my asset portfolio, while keeping me from seeing your asset choices, how much you have there, and so on. And likewise, you don't see what I have, and the government, no one sees that you are sending this to me, but I get my assets increase, each one more or less proportionally to its position in my portfolio, and yours decrease a little bit, proportional to your holdings. So it's kind of ideal. It's what you want. Big companies never want to hold a lot of cash because that's bad, right? That they go to a lot of trouble to try to keep all their assets working for them. But even that is not that efficient because many of the asset types can't be moved 24/7. There are rules and difficulties. So this is even better, really, than what has been available to, say, the heads of major companies or the treasurers. And moreover, because AI now is so useful, it's perfect for this. So I can get some tips from AI about my portfolio, and that can help me gain more wealth. And I can social investing. I can also copy portfolios from my friends or famous people. But the fact that AI can help me invest and make more money is really great. And the choice is, or big banks are going to use AI to help them invest my money and make money for themselves, right? That's what money is, just debt. So it's like commercial bank or central bank debt. I hold it, it's slightly inflationary, it might fail every once in a while, and so I never get ahead because I'm not investing. So it's a very bad, money is evil. Crazy thing. Why would I be saying, that? I'm talking against my own book, but I'm certain of it. I'm very convinced now. One of the biggest problems globally is that many people don't feel that the system is working for them economically. So even in the United States, I read recently 20 or 30% of young people feel that they aren't going to reach a level of prosperity like their family, their parents, and so on. and they're very, unhappy about that. And so they, I think, somewhat rationally say, well, the system's not working for me, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. But that's very dangerous because with AI now, if, say, Donald Trump takes over or, something like that, very authoritarian government, because the system's not working for people, it's never going to go back because AI is so good at manipulating people's, beliefs and opinions that obviously the dictators will use it to make sure that they can stay in power forever. So it's, in history, it was, well, okay, bad things happen, but people will, rise up or whatever, but that's not really a scenario anymore.
It is, yeah. So how do you perceive the advantage of better than money compared to the traditional money system?
Well, there's, it's better for poor people to use in payments because they are accumulating wealth, because it's all their value is invested. Okay, that's one advantage. And also for society, that means, we say all boats rise. So because right now, did you know that payments is a global tax over 2% of the global GDP? The payments industry takes over 2% of the global GDP as fees every year. That's a 2% tax on the global economy. And it's a very, very regressive tax because really mainly only the poor pay it. And the poorer you are, the more you pay. Like Amex, you pay negative tax, right? If you live in a developing country, you might pay 4, 5, 6% just to move money. So rich people, don't suffer from this. So it's a very, so that's a huge advantage. But there's a few more advantages. A very fundamental one is systemic risk. The job of governments and the financial systems, the central banks, is to provide for the common good, to create money or rails or whatever commons that everyone can use to do economic activity. And the thing that they really have to prevent is collapse. But these days we've seen, I don't know if you've noticed a GameStop, a pretty famous incident where people use social media to manipulate stock prices, and it just, those trades almost didn't settle. And we have a so-called T+2 settlement, and if the trading goes crazy, it can't settle. And that would take the whole global economy down because the agency that's in charge of protecting against that only has a limited amount of capital, like 60 billion. So social media is so powerful that you could easily take down the whole financial system just by creating, and the same with Silicon Valley Bank, for example. It's now known that it was destroyed because some venture guys were just sending some messages to each other saying, oh, it's better get your money out of Silicon Valley Bank. Boom, it collapsed. So, you can't really prevent a run on a bank, and if there's social media, it's so powerful. So we are now in a world that's very much more at risk of global economic collapse. It's incredible. And the great thing about better than money in that regard is, it's all asset backed, so that you can't have a run on the bank. It doesn't have this. It just sidesteps that whole issue, and there's no other real way to solve it. So that's another fundamental advantage. And, also, not as big, but for trading, it's an advantage because, well, for one thing, you have so many more people involved in holding these kind of assets. So you learn a lot more from them about demand. So this really helps with price discovery. If you look at some of the major markets, sometimes the number of people participating is very thin. And that means the prices aren't really very reflective. When you crowdsource information like that, the Condorcet theorem says you get much better information. So it's better for the markets and for the consumer or the user. It's always true that people want to change their portfolio. And I read, in Singapore, just when I was coming here a few days ago, that some survey showed that most Singaporeans now have increased their percentage of gold over the last 2 years. That's an example. Well, to restructure and rebalance your portfolio normally means you have to incur, fees and slippage, right? Which are, explicit or implicit fees. It's all really one thing, but in any event, it costs you money. Whereas with better than money, because you're doing transfers using those assets, you can do it in such a way that you will morph your portfolio towards where you want it to go for free. In other words, because you can just do that through the actual transactions you have to do anyways in payments. So that's another advantage. So there's Yeah, I mean, what more do you want? It's good for the economy, it's good for poor people, it's good for preventing systemic risks, which is growing out of control, and it's, yeah, I mean, and it will help the overall economy dramatically because 2% friction is a real lot. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, as you've mentioned, payment is a very important sector in the global economy, right?
Yeah.
So how does the Better the Money project to make sure that the transaction efficiency and keep the user experience objective?
Well, so, one thing that I've done recently, before announcing Better the Money, is we worked hard to build a good app. Just not only on iPhone, but I showed it here in Singapore, and I think it will soon be up on the website. But it's very easy to use. It's very much an app. It's not really like a spreadsheet or some complicated piece of software. It's easy and intuitive, and there's sort of only one way to do each thing. And so my user interface designers, they've been doing this for a long. They're very happy with it, and you see it. It's fun to use. You can move these little charts around, and I think it proves that it's easy for users to use, which is great, because who knew? And we had to do some experiments to see what people liked and so on, and what they could understand. And then okay. You see, right now there's, let's say, 1,100 different exchange-traded funds from BlackRock.
Yeah.
And BlackRock invented the exchange-traded fund for a similar reason. They wanted to give middle-class investors exposure to a much wider palette of asset types than they could get just on the markets in those days, 20 years ago. It grew very, very rapidly, and now it's 10% of all global assets under management. It's a $10 trillion category, and it is, there are 10,000 different ETFs, not just BlackRock. So, there's a lot of different kinds of assets you might want to have in Better Than Money, because especially if AI is helping you. Because they wouldn't have all those if it wasn't useful. They're all useful sometimes for certain things. I mean, they're used by very sophisticated people, more than ordinary people today, but that may change with AI. But so, to your question about efficiency, you see, so you want to have a diversity of asset types, all these different types, but you still want the system to be efficient. That's kind of sounds difficult because, some of those asset providers might be a little slow or go on vacation or screw up. So Better Than Money, one of the things that I designed into it, this took quite some effort, but I feel it's important and it's achieved it, is that it's not dependent on any one of the asset providers in terms of real-time performance. So more specifically, when I'm a user and I'm making a payment, I only interact with this one entity that is the real-time part. It doesn't have any custody. It's like an orchestrator, but it's not really the owner or the major player, but it's not really centralized, but it does coordinate. So it lines up the whole thing and locks these things up, but I get the recipient gets the keys to unlock it, and then so it creates instant finality, irreversibility of the payment, but then very quickly, but then only later do the actual asset providers have to come in and do what they're supposed to do, and then the payment is unlocked. So it's very scalable. So it will always have really good performance, and actually, in mathematics we like to use the word multiplicity, just means that how many of each thing do you have? Well, in Better Than Money, there's no part of the system where you must have only one of them. So everything can be replicated, and there can be competition between all the different instances of each thing. So even that orchestrating entity can be replicated. And in fact, there can be two whole separate versions of Better Than Money. One that is outside of the control of governments, blockchain-based, right? And then for those type of assets, and the other one is could all be, traditional financial assets, and they're separate systems. However, the software, like what we've written, can work with both. So you don't, as a user, see really that there's a difference. You get both asset types in your portfolio. So that's, so in a sense, that's centralized. That's one thing, but actually all the back end is really decentralized. But the only online part is, can be very optimized for that. So it's I think the system's extremely efficient.
Yeah, the debate of centralization and decentralization never ends.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I've been, we say around the block a few times. I've been working on this kind of things for 40 years. And if you look at my dissertation from Berkeley, for example, from 40 years ago, it's on my website. It basically was a whole specification for blockchain. And some people wrote an article about it recently when they found that. So I've thought about all these things a lot of different ways. And, we have an expression like a solution looking for a problem. I mean, to a certain extent, the ethos for blockchain is such a great thing. And you can see my first public appearance when I was very enthusiastic about it all. And, it's a tremendous thing. And there aren't other industries like that. It's really fantastic. But that doesn't mean that the particular way that we in the blockchain space have been thinking about and moving towards decentralization is, let's say, the only way. Or maybe even, the best way. I was involved in computer science with a PhD at Berkeley. One of the things I studied extensively was computer architecture. This is design of the actual inner computer instructions and how it works inside the processor and the memory and all this. And, one of the insights you get in that field of study is that, we say it depends. There's no best computer architecture. It depends on what you want to compute. And so, and then you might, if you had a certain program or a set of programs you wanted to run, maybe you could say this is, close to the ideal computer for that in terms of silicon area or power or speed or something. But it's not a one size fits all. Some of these computer architectures are very different. So by analogy or metaphor, by extension, I think the implication is that these security mechanisms that really we have, like blockchain, it has a kind of security angle to it, right? Because it involves cryptography. These security mechanisms aren't, just sort of one size fits all. This idea of blockchain is related. It's nice for certain things, probably, but for other things it might not be ideal. So what I described to you just now is a decentralized system that's, where decentralization is well suited for what it wants to accomplish. So it can do it very efficiently, super efficiently, better than most big systems because it's so only relies on a very limited orchestrator. So I think it makes the point. A lot of what's going on in blockchain today, but this has been for years. People, I'm just waiting for the Web3, what we used to call killer app. Something that a lot of people use to prove out that Web3 is, really works. And we know that's going to happen, but we're still waiting because it hasn't happened yet. And there's, trillions of dollars have been invested in blockchain. It still hasn't happened. I tried to make such a thing. We're all waiting for this. Maybe, it's not that easy to make a Web3 app that's competitive with a Web2 app. I'm sorry to have to say, the Web2 people have a lot of advantage. It's so easy, and they can change things so easily. And the Web3 people are working really, really hard just to match, the basic Web2 functionality. So, what I think what you simply don't want to rule out an approach where we would say, well, okay, this is an important thing we need to do to prevent financial meltdown, to help, raise the wealth of the world's poor and so forth. Let's try to find a different decentralization paradigm that works very well for that. And that's what I did. So guilt-free. I've not been, losing sleep over why I can't use, Ethereum to build it. It in Better Than Money, that kind of thing. It's proven to be a very fundamental technology of mixing. Mixing is when the message comes into a node. All the messages come in. The node shuffles them, changes their order, and then changes the encryption and outputs them to the next node. And then that node decrypts them partly, rearranges them randomly, re-encrypts them again, and sends them out to the next node. So it's like people sitting around a card table. Everyone shuffles, gives the card to the next person. And so by the time it's gone all the way around, even if only one honest person is at the table, you know that the card deck is fully shuffled. Yeah. So that's what mixing does for messages. And I believe that's fundamentally important. Blockchain supports it very well. Because we have a large set of nodes and, we send the messages around through them and people are compensated for running those nodes. And, I think that's all great. But for some other uses, it might not be ideal.
It is. Many countries are now launching the central bank digital currencies.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I want to talk about the CBDCs. What's your view on this?
Well, in a few days, there's going to be a report issued by the Bank for International Settlement in cooperation with the Swiss National Bank, and it is about eCash 2.0. So I invented the original eCash, and now I came up with this improved version together with a guy who works at the Swiss National Bank. He's actually a director there. He's on the board of directors. Thomas Moser, he's a great guy. And so a few months ago, IBM built this system with some partners, and we demonstrated it in Zurich, just a few hundred meters from where Credit Suisse was at the Paradeplatz. And a lot of people, 150 people came to see it work and buy the t-shirt with the app and all that. It worked perfectly. So it is the reason, I was at a kind of, invite-only conference recently, relatively recently, called the, Satoshi Roundtable, right? And a lot of people are there from our space, and they have different, sessions, and it's freely decided and all, but they were having a session on CBDC. And I had to kind of walk around and not get within sight of it because people warned me, they are rabidly against any CBDC. So, however, the reason I worked on CBDC was to prove, and now eCash 2.0 has done that, prove that you can have a CBDC that protects people's privacy very well and yet is secure, more secure than quantum secure. So it's secure even against a counterfeiter who has infinite amount of computing resources. That's as good as it could ever get. And so counterfeiters cannot counterfeit it. It has really good privacy with a full anonymity set for users, and it's very scalable. And this project, proved that it's scalable. They ran 3 times the number of transactions that run through Switzerland through it, and it all just worked. No problem. So it's scalable. It's more secure than any commercial product out there, and it has full anonymity set, user-controlled privacy. Don't forget, it's not like the banks say, we're protecting your privacy. No, you choose the keys, and your computer does the encryption that protects your privacy. You control your own privacy. So I proved to the world that, if some government says, we're sorry, we'd love to give you privacy, but we really can't because the performance wouldn't be good or the security wouldn't be good enough, you can just laugh at them because that's over. So if they want to do it, yeah, sure, they can do it, but but they can't claim that they're doing it for a good reason. That's why I was involved with CBDC. So I've done that. It's mission accomplished. Very happy.
Yeah, super. Okay, so today we talk about digital privacy, cryptocurrencies, and how these areas can shape in the future.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you for coming to.
Oh, well, that's so great. It's such a pleasure. Thank you. It's really interesting.
Is this your first time coming to Singapore?
I've been here, as a digital nomad, part of the blockchain craziness, traveling for just 2 days to give keynotes and then go there a year and, with my team and the PR people, the videographers, the whole stuff, staying at the Marina Bay Sands, in beautiful suites and, meeting all these investors and everything. And, so I never really got to appreciate Singapore. Just, straight from the airport right to the hotel and then back, give a keynote in San Francisco after 2 days, So this has been super nice, and it's, I've met a lot of people, learned a lot. I stayed at Skunk Clubhouses, and then it's been wonderful.
Yeah, hope to enjoy this trip, and thank you for coming to our DeThings media room. See you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.